When you see the whole world shaking and you feel your heart is breaking, take my hand, no hesitating. When you're just so tired of trying, all alone you feel like hiding. Together we'll keep fighting. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains too high we can climb it. Feelings we're taking the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Can you see the sun is shining like a new hope? Feel it rising, coming over the horizon. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains too high we can climb it. Feelings we're taking the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. There's no stopping.
Good evening. And again, it's actually not evening. I'm doing this Saturday afternoon. It's a little bit after 2 o'clock. I have some plans for the evening. So I am pre-recording in the fairness of full disclosure. So I'm not live at 7 p.m., but this will be shown at 7 p.m. So I'm Chris Gargiulo. I am an associate broker and licensed real estate specialist for Realty Connect LLC. And this is my podcast, Real Estate with Mr. G. It's a weekly podcast I do at 7 p.m. and we discuss current topics within the real estate industry. I basically work now as a marketer for Realty Connect LLC. I could help you find and list a property not only in my location of Hampton Roads, Virginia, but anywhere within the 50 states. Okay? We could talk, or we don't have to talk. You could go to my website and you'll see it come up in the video and enter your information, whether you're buying or selling, and you'll be presented with up to 3 agents in that locale that you could work with, and still, come back to me for some direction, for some advice or whatever. And I think it's a nice way of doing business. Okay. So first, let me show my little background information on my background video on that. Okay, I hope that puts that in a nutshell. I created that video. I own the rights to the music. And I think it's a nice way of saying I could help you find a home or list a home anywhere in the 50 states of the United States of America. Okay? All right. So let's go to the question today involving our topic. And I think we have Raj from Norfolk.
Hi, Mr. G. Thanks for allowing me on your video podcast. I see there are more foreclosures hitting the market lately. Are we having a repeat of 2008 when many foreclosures were on the market? Please advise. Thanks. I enjoy your weekly podcast. Health and prosperity to you and all your descendants.
Thank you very much, Raj. That was very nice. Okay, so there have been reports I've seen to come up with in my feeds or to the newspapers, magazines that I subscribe to that are showing more articles. I mean, more foreclosures hitting the market. And for instance, I'm going to show this up on my stream here. And here's one that came out just about a day ago. And it's from CBS News. And it's showing here foreclosures spike as banks loom over the boom on homeowners. Okay, and then we have a notice of intent to foreclose, and it's talking about how banks are now going after people who were now. I got to give a little back history to this, and what happened, of course, during the pandemic, where many people were losing their jobs, or maybe not losing, but being furloughed, being laid off. And so the banks offered a moratorium on paying your mortgage. Okay. As now we're hopefully 100% out of the pandemic, these moratoriums are coming to an end. So for the people who did not get their jobs back in order, who are making less, or maybe they changed jobs and they're not making as much now, if they're having difficulty in making those payments, the bank is starting the foreclosure proceedings. All right, so this has come up on quite a few websites, whether it's the internet version of the magazine or newspaper, and that's come up a lot. We're going to talk about this today, where even though we are seeing more foreclosures coming on the horizon, it's still not as bad as going back to 2008. So, and by the way, this article is also on my blog. I believe I posted it yesterday, so you could read it in more detail. And the article that I'm going to go to, which was published, if it was Thursday, on my blog, and you could read it in detail. But we're going to show it here. I'm going to get rid of my caption here. We don't need that right now. We know what we're going to talk about now. Okay? So why today's foreclosures numbers are nothing like 2008? All right? So even though we're seeing a rise, it's still not as bad as the numbers in 2008, but there's also other nuances that are different. So as I started off saying, by looking at the headlines, you're seeing that there are more foreclosures in the market. And according to a recent report from ATTOM, property data provider, foreclosure filings are up 6% compared to the previous quarter, at 22% since 1 year ago, and 22% since 1 year ago. So the reality is, while increasing, the data shows a foreclosure crisis is not where the market is headed. We're not going to see, at this point of time, a large influx of foreclosures because times are a little bit different than it was going back in 2008. And how are they different, you might ask? If you want to ask that, go ahead. How is it different at this point? It isn't the dramatic increase headlines would have you believe. That's because in 2020 and 2021, the foreclosure program and other relief programs for homeowners helped millions of homeowners stay in their homes, allowing them to get back on their feet during a very challenging period, which was the pandemic. And with home sales rising at the same time, many owners who may have found themselves facing foreclosure under the circumstances were able to leverage their equity and sell their house rather than face foreclosure. All right. Moving forward, equity will continue to be a factor that can help keep people from going into foreclosure. So, meaning that during the pandemic, home prices increased unbelievably high. And some, as it says, going up into 18, 19%. So even if, excuse me, even if the owner who was having financial difficulty had to sell their house, they could actually put it on the market, not as a distressed property, not as a bank-owned property. They putting it on the market themselves as the owners, sell the house, and still come out with a profit because of the dramatic increase in home prices, which gave them more home equity. So there's no reason to panic, at least not yet. Foreclosure filings began ticking up after the federal foreclosure moratorium ended. The moratorium was enacted in the early days of COVID-19. This is what I was talking about before, when millions of Americans lost their jobs to prevent a tsunami of homeowners losing their properties. Some of these proceedings would have taken place during the pandemic, but got delayed due to the moratorium. This is a bit of a catch-up. So these moratoriums are ending, all right, and people have to start paying their mortgages. So this unfortunate trend can be attributed to a variety of factors, such as rising unemployment rates, foreclosure filings making their way through the pipeline after 2 years of government intervention, and other ongoing economic challenges. However, with many homeowners still having a significant home equity that may help in keeping increased levels of foreclosure activity at bay. So what they're going to do here to further paint the picture of just how different it is, they show, and forgive me, it got a little bit cut off. They show the amount of foreclosure filings that were actually really, really high in starting around 2009 to about 2011. And we see them drop quite significantly as we go into 2007, 2018. And this got kind of cut off. Let me see here if I could get that back. I'm sorry about that. Well, I don't want to mess it up, but basically, it stays kind of leveled afterward. So it's definitely not the way it was going back to, let's say, from 2008 going all the way to about 2011, 2012. And actually, at that point, it begins to go down the amount of foreclosures. So today's foreclosures are far below the record high number that was reported when the housing market crashed. Okay? So we're still in good shape. It seems like weekly news about the economy is still strong. It's slowing, okay? But this no signs yet we're going to go into a deep recession. Now, you can always find articles that will say that it will. But if you look, if you take a picture of today or the last week, you see that the economy is still going strong. Can it get worse? It's possible, yes. Can there be more foreclosures on the horizon? Yes, if we go into recession, if many people lose their jobs and can't afford their monthly mortgage payment. But at this moment of time, it's not happening. Okay, so keep that all in mind about today's market. I know I haven't been busy. One of my jobs that I did, I used to do evaluations of homes that people went into contract with, and they were using a hard lender, and I would have to go and evaluate their home. Most of the times it was a distressed property, whether it was a foreclosure, bank owned, or an REO or a short sale, and usually there would have to be there would have to have been work. I'm getting a little tongue tied here. My mouth's a little dry. I'm sorry. To bring it up to par. So my job was to look at the true value of it now and what it could be once all repairs were made. And we would actually make decisions based upon like a mid-level renovation where you're not using the high-end materials, let's say for updating kitchens and bathrooms, and then looking at if you went to a really high-end. And then it'll all be based upon the neighborhood as well. So I haven't done that in basically 2 years. And I might, about 2 years. And again, there was basically I would call it per diem type of job. They would just call me in when they needed an evaluation. And they haven't called me in for, I would say, about 2 years. So there really aren't that many foreclosures on the market. Now, I may be called in to do this in the near future if we get into a situation where the economy begins to tank. All right. But at this moment of time, I would say no. Okay. So here I am again, nice and big. And let's see. So let's show a little video to change it up a little bit. And it's a video on when you're ready to sell that house, whether you're trying to avoid foreclosure or whatever, hopefully not. I hear some tips on selling that house. And here we go. Okay, so that's 4 tips there on basically preparing your home for sale. Now, do not forget, and it's been on now for about a month, on my blog site we have things to consider when buying a home, and that is the Spring 2023 edition. Also on my blog site is the things to consider when selling your house. Again, it's the Spring 2023 edition. These guides come out quarterly, so 1 per season. And where do you go for such a nice, wonderful thing to download and read and understand? And you go to realestatewithmrg.blog. /resource-materials. And again, if you just go on my blog and you'll see a menu bar there, and you just click on resource materials, and you could download it for free. Okay. So let me get rid of some things here. And we're going to take off that. And we're going to take off the pictures of the guides. And let me see if I did everything so far I wanted to do. I think I did. So I'm actually doing these podcasts fast now, which is good. Because after 30 minutes, even going up to 30 minutes, you begin to lose people. I hope I'm not losing you. But I try to make it varied. I try to bring in some fun stuff. So I hear that my producer, William Burgess, says that we have a special guest in the audience and might have some animals in my audience. What's going on?
Hi, Chris. Great news. We have a famous celebrity in the audience with his horses. Originally from East Germany, Hans von Klinkenspiel trained horses at an early age of 6 and has them performing various stunts at his will. This upset Hans's parents since they lived in a small studio apartment in East Berlin and had no place to stable the animals. Ladies and gents, Hans and his horses.
Well, thank you, Hans, for stopping by. I really appreciate that. That was very fun. Okay. So we'll see you next week. Today looks nice. It's supposed to rain tomorrow. I feel bad for the people who bought all these tickets but I think they still went to the some tickets in the water. And I just hope it stays nice for tomorrow as well. And it's supposed to be a beautiful week. And we're coming into May. And we're coming into beach season and pool season. So we have a lot of fun things to look forward to, okay? And with that in mind, I want to make sure I have all my right things correctly put up here. With that in mind, I wish you a happy week. And always remember, the greatest power we have is to love, and the greatest gift, each other. Thanks, and see you next week.